Hey there, I'm Sean C. Davis, and I'm going to show you how I like to add SVG or vector icons to a React project. Now, what I've got pulled up here is just a super simple React app. I've used Create React App, and then I've just modified the homepage to have this super simple content. I have a heading that says icon example, and then this div with a couple spans in it. And what I want to do is I want to replace this with an SVG icon. So as the process usually goes, I don't need to prescribe all of the icons at the beginning of the project. Now, in some cases, you might get a design and you might know what they are and you can just fly through it, and that's totally great. If you're developing on your own, like I usually am, I'm often discovering the icons I need throughout the project. And so when I do that, I have to go find something that fits. Now, again, if you've already got this with design, that's a bonus. Or if you've thought through this on your design, also extra bonus, all great. If not, you need first an outlet to go get your icons. And I lately have been using this website called the Noun Project. I pay for this. It's a service so that I can use these icons without attribution. And there are tons and tons and tons of icons. So it's a really great service to use. But if you've got designers who are already giving you these SVGs, or you can build them on your own, or you want to use a different service, go for it. So in this case, I am rendering this like link-like, button-like sort of thing, and it says success. So I mean, I could search success. This is we don't need to do a lesson in Googling, I suppose. What makes you think of success? You could do that. In a lot of cases, this is probably just check or check mark, and that will get the job done. And, maybe we like this one's kind of fancy. We got the circle with the check mark popping out the side. So let's go ahead and do this. And then I'm already signed in, so I'm able to just download this right away. This is going to give me this SVG file. And then what I do is I tend to start a page in the art program that I use. And I prefer Figma. I'm a big fan of Figma. Let me make this window a little bit bigger here. This is a project that I've worked recently, and so you can see this is actually not honestly not a great example of an icon set for a project, because you see some are rounded, some are very have sharp edges, some are thicker, some are thinner. So this isn't necessarily a great example of a set. But it is a good example of how I really like to set up icons, whether I'm given them or whether I need to look for them. And what I do is I pick a size, and lately I've been picking 200 by 200. So this is 200 width, 200 height, and that's what I make the artboard. And I like to make the background transparent so that I can see the icon, and then I'll make the icon black. So in this, once I have one established, it becomes a little bit easier to work with. You can see I already I have a success one here, but because we're doing a demo, let's copy this, and then I'll move it down, and there we go. And we'll get rid of what's in there. And then what I can do is I can take my downloaded file. And this is what usually happens here when I download from the Noun Project, is I get a symbol or a frame or some grouping. Yep, there's the group, and then here's the vector together, and they're not always super clean. And so you can resize it first. What I often like to do is I go all the way down to the vector level and pull them all the way up, and then I just delete all the extra the excess stuff that came with it. Now, there's some cases where you might actually get a stroke or a circle, some sort of shape. And in those cases, you want to make sure that you have outlined it, which is, you could say outline stroke here. For me, it's Shift, Command, and O. But in this case, I've got what I need. And so what I usually do is I take these two, and then I never remember what I need to do. And I play around with them till I can make them one thing. That worked. Union. Okay. And then I want to make at least one edge stretch all the way to the edge of the frame, which in this case, it's 200 pixels, as I mentioned. So I'm going to lock this proportionally, and we see it's a little bit wider than it is tall. So we make that 200. And then I use a shortcut to horizontally and vertically center it. I can also do that up here, vertical and horizontal. And then you can change the color, but we're going to change the color anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, what I've always done in the past is then I download it, but what I've learned recently is you don't have to do that. Instead, I can come to the artboard. Now, this is important. I want the artboard, not the artwork. If I choose the artwork, notice that I'm 200 by 193. I want a very consistent square shape that I can use for all icons because we're going to build this consistency throughout the project. So I'm going to select the artboard or the frame itself, different terminology depending on the art program that you're using. And in Figma, I can right click and I can do copy as SVG, which is amazing. Amazing. I don't even have to download it. So now I'm going to come back into my React project, and in the source directory, let's add a components icon.jsx file. So here, and then let's make a success icon component, and we'll go through a few iterations here. So let's start here. Okay, now we can see what I have. So and what I pasted, which is some SVG code. A lot of this stuff we don't actually need. Now everything's doing something, but it doesn't always result in an effect that is meaningful in the browser. And so what I typically try to do is get rid of fill rules and clip rules. I get rid of groupings that seem meaningless, like this clip path. We don't need it. We've got the height and width on the SVG itself. And so I can actually take this and simplify this significantly. So I'm going to keep the SVG element where it is. I'm going to remove the group. I'm going to remove all the definitions. And then even in the path, I'm going to remove fill rule and clip rule. Save that. And now I have what I want almost, except I want the fill to not be black, but to be the current color. So it will inherit the color of whatever the parent element is. So now I have the success icon. And for now, let's just export this directly, and we'll come back and we'll make a couple of iterations here. Okay, so now what we can do is let's import. Oh, whoa. All right. Wow, I'm not typing well today. Okay. Our success icon. So now we have our success icon, and we can put this here, and let's go back to the browser and see what happens. Whoa. Okay. It works. Amazing. It works. It became 200 pixels wide. Maybe it's even bigger. Nope, it's 200 by 200. Yep. Okay, so it worked. It is 100% the normal size. Great. It's not great. It's not our end state. One thing I usually do is I'll make a global rule where I just say every SVG element should be 100% width of its parent. Now, that doesn't help me here because the parent doesn't have a constraining width. So what we can do is we can say, let's see if we get this right, but we can say width is, let's try 1. Okay, well, that worked. And then I don't know if I have to do the same thing with height. Let's see, this is where we can get into some goofy stuff here. So height is auto. Oh, you know what we can actually do is I've got my view box. Yeah, that's what it was one. So I do get rid of the height and width on the SVG element directly because I now have this global rule where width is 100%, the height is going to be auto, and I now think I can get rid of that. And then on my containing element, it's display flex, and we can say align items center and justify content center. Oh, yeah, okay, we don't want both of those, right? There we go. Align item center. And we probably end up with a little bit of goofiness that we would have to play with a bit. Because let's see here. So that is 18 tall, and that is not. So what you can do is, because one is text, one is not. If we want them to be the same size here, let's see. Can I do get rid of view? All right. And we can you can play with this depending on how the CSS you have um, and all of that, just to get it quite right. So this is not a CSS lesson though, so let's not worry about that too much. But I did want to show you now, because I had set the color to the current color, that if I were to change the color of both of these, they both turn red immediately. Whereas if I had left this as black as it was, it won't inherit that color. So I changed this to current color, and all of a sudden I then inherit whatever this color is. Or just pick who knows what color that's going to be. I don't know. I'm not a hex genius or anything like that. Okay, so let's see what we've covered a lot here on going to find the element, going to find the icon, putting the icon in Figma or whatever art tool you want, copying it out as SVG, and then we have this icon component. Now, last couple things that I want to cover here are some different patterns that you can follow in this icon component, because you're not just going to have one component. You're going to have dozens. I mean, some big projects, maybe hundreds. And there are a couple patterns that I like, that I tend to follow. It kind of depends on what feels right. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of size of the project and all of that. So one thing we can do is, if we don't want to mess with needing to remember what we keep and what we remove from the SVG element each time, is we could have an icon wrapper, for example, that gets it really just renders children. And we can even make this simpler if we want, which is basically, give me this SVG children SVG, and then when we can simplify, or maybe shorten. Simplify is relative, certainly. Okay, and now our success icon is much simpler. We know that we just need to wrap it in an icon component, and here's our path, and we are good to go. And so then there's a matter of also, how are you going to export this? Some folks like to have an icon component where we could, so let's say that this instead was icon wrapper. Just to be more explicit. So let's say that was icon wrapper. And maybe our icon component takes a name, and then we would have this maybe icon map, and in that map we could have success, and that would be success icon. And we can move these to the bottom so that we've got what we want. And then here we say our component is we would and you'd probably want to have some checks in here as well, but let's just assume that we know it's going to match our icon map and then the name, and then we can return the component. Okay, so we could export the icon, and let's just make sure this is working. So now instead of importing success icon, let's import icon. And if we do this, we get nothing. We probably ran into, did we run into an error? Nope. Okay. So then we want to say name, And if we said success, we can do that. So I've seen this pattern a lot where everything kind of gets filtered through this one main component, and that's using some map that is mapping to other components, and you can choose how you want to set those components up. Another way is that you could just, you can export them directly as we did originally, so that we said success icon, and then we could say success icon. So we have, rather than having a prop, we just have the component itself, and that works too. And then lastly, the other thing you can do is you can kind of combine those ideas. So we could export a constant icon that basically is the map, and let's see here. Can we? In fact, no. Let's just use this export, and instead call this icon. And so now I can still bring in icon, but we would say icon dot success. And will this? Oh right. So I want to say success. And then I get the same thing. And just to, but yeah, notice that I couldn't have the lowercase there, that I had to have Pascal case, but that works as well. So there's three kind of different patterns, different flavors for how you can bring those icons in. I've tried them all. It's honestly, it's more of, for me, it has been more of a sense of taste, like what feels right for that particular project. And that can change from project to project. It can change based on the quantity of icons. I've also had projects where I don't just have a handful of icons, but dozens or hundreds. And in that case, I want to break this up in some way, whether it's grouping icons together or maybe every icon gets its own individual file. That has another problem. There's a trade-off there, in that then you have to open a new file every time you're adding a new icon. So it's really just whatever works for you. I wanted to show you a few different things and kind of these common patterns that I've tried and what has been working for me lately in React projects. So hope that's helpful. If it is, subscribe to this channel and let me know what else you would like to see here. Thanks for watching.